Are you on social media? I mean, who isn't? And it can definitely be a double-edged sword. There's no better person to talk about this than today's guest, Virginia Kerr. Now, Virginia is a social media expert, former newscaster, video strategist, content creator and educator, an introvert who plays an extrovert on camera. She's also my video coach, and I owe a debt of gratitude to her and her trainings. She brings a unique perspective on how social media shapes our reality. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Allie Kerr.
And I'm Shauna Kaminsky. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
Virginia, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. As soon as we started this podcast, you came to mind as my go-to person, as somebody that's on social media and who can speak to your experience and how it affects all of us.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. I think this is a great topic because anyone who's on social media has a love-hate relationship with it. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, I would agree, and it just colors. It can color your day if you're not careful. How do you balance your own health, given that, I think your business is pretty much fueled by social media? So that's a big ask. Like, you're not just on there to, look at puppies or cat videos or get entertained. You are on there day in and day out, creating content, bringing value. I mean, I'm going to say right off the bat that you are my video coach, and I've learned so much from you. So we will be putting some links in the show notes so that people can find you, because I've just learned so much from you. But how do you balance your own health, your mental health, with the demands of running a business that requires you to just be always on social media?
Well, I have to tell you, I'm still figuring it out, but I'm a lot better at it 4 years later after starting my business on Instagram in late 2019. And I find that I have to take those mental breaks and I cannot skip them, because I used to do that. I used to just push through it. And not only did it make it worse for me mentally, my content was watered down because of it. And I know this from people who've even messaged me. They could tell. And so what's the point? I also find now that so many people are creating content, we get worn out by all the content. So why not let it breathe a little bit? Spend some time in the stories if you want to. It's if you're really trying to make money, and then I'm talking about Instagram right now, but if you're really trying to make money online, you have to take time to connect with people and give them that behind the scenes you. And I don't just mean showing behind the scenes. I mean actually talking to your followers who DM you. So what I do is, on those breaks, I may take a break from posting on my feed, but I might be in stories. I have different levels of breaks, Shauna. Like, sometimes it is like zilch, zero. You don't see me at all. I am laser focused on another part of my life. Or I might go from posting 5 days a week to 2 to 3 days a week. Or maybe I'm not posting at all, but I'm still in stories and in my DMs. So those are the different levels of taking a break. But people have to give themselves permission to take breaks. And I don't get online and say, hey, I'm taking a break, everybody. I don't have automatic DM responses saying, sorry, no. I want you to know that we all have the right to take a break, and you don't need to apologize, and you don't need to tell people about it. Just do it.
Yeah, because I don't want to say the real people in your life, but the people in your immediate circle, they know you're alive and well. I know that sometimes where you've taken a break and I'm like, we've not met in person, but I consider you a friend.
Like it, doesn't it? Yeah, I feel like I've seen you in person, but you're right, we haven't.
Right. And so then when you take a break, I'm like, I hope everything's okay. And so there are some really great things about social media, because we meet people virtually that we can really connect with. We can have friendships, we can get support from, like, you and I both grow our coaching businesses from the people that you meet online, but more importantly, like the relationships that you build are, I feel like they can, and we can probably thank COVID a bit for this, is that we've learned to create meaningful connection
Yeah.
online.
Well, the
But
other thing is, and this is getting into content strategy a little bit, but people need to realize that just posting short form content and staying consistent on Instagram does not necessarily make you money. You have to have a strategy, but the other thing I'm trying to get to is long form content is where you're going to build those connections. So you having this podcast, you having your newsletter, those are the sticky content that will go a very long way with the right people. So you might have a lot of people who see your reels and see your stories, but if they don't feel like they've really gotten to know you by that longer form content, it is harder to convert them. So if you have a little bit of both, you don't have to be as consistent with your short form video.
yeah, and I have found that. And I know that, because this is our business, it would be so easy for us to just talk shop talk, but probably for a lot of our listeners, they're on social media just for fun,
That's true. That's a
you
good
know.
point.
And
Oh
so
yeah, I can talk to that too.
yeah, so, what do you see as like the detriments of social media? Because it's great for like posting your grandkids, or we went on this trip, or, keeping up with friends that might be remote, but like there is a dark side.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, it's highly addictive. So it's a major time suck. And you can really send the wrong message to your loved ones when they see you constantly glued to your phone, even if it is for entertainment reasons. The second thing is, it's your brain is wired this way. Your brain cannot help but compare you to someone else. So, especially on platforms like Instagram, where everything is aesthetically beautiful,
Yeah.
especially this time of year, everyone is showing off their holiday decor and their holiday pictures and gifts and all that stuff. It can really make you feel like crap looking at stuff that you don't have or thinking that you need to be something that you don't. And that is something that I have to even like stop myself, like, okay, you are not a home decor account. Like, why do we feel like we need to have all this perfect? But
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah.
So and going back to balance, when I get on social media, I know my purpose. So I'm either there for looking at all the pretty holiday stuff. So that would be entertainment, or I'm there for business reasons or connection reasons. But I have one or the other, not both. So I try to make it very clear to myself the purpose of why we're on and how long we're going to be on there. And I
Yeah.
try to turn, like, once I've done all my things for my business on Instagram, I'm pretty much done for the day until mid morning the next day anyway. So I think you have to have boundaries.
Yeah, I would agree, because and we have to remember that what most people are putting up is the highlight reel. So, you didn't see that, I don't know, the turkey got dropped on the floor before
Right.
the picture of like the family picture, the yelling in the background, or I'm not saying that this happened, but you don't have the context. And so I find that social media can be more alienating, and people tend to feel can I feel like in a world that could be so that seemingly more socially connected, people tend to be very lonely,
Oh yeah. Especially
lonelier than ever.
especially A, this time of year, and B, with all the stuff that's going on in our world today, it it's scary. And then you get online and you're like, "Oh, well, nobody's really talking about that. Everybody else seems to have a perfect life. What's wrong with me? Why am I anxious? Why am I thinking about all these terrible things?" And then I get online, am I crazy? Or
Yeah,
then it's the opposite, like, why are all these fake people online?
yeah,
Like, don't they know what's happening? So it's yeah, it's again, balance. Because if you
yeah,
isolate yourself in your house, if you're like us and you work from home by yourself
yeah,
primarily, that
yeah,
that also can send you down a spiral as well. So it's it's
yeah,
it's helped me to find the right people on social media. Like we were saying, we've never met in person, but I feel like we have, and we're
yeah,
close, and we met on Instagram. So I think if you're gonna do it, make some real relationships. Don't just get on there to entertain, because you will compare yourself and it won't feel good. I would be totally fine if social media never happened. I mean, it has blessed me in so many
Yeah,
ways, but
yeah,
I was one of the very last people to get on Facebook. I couldn't stand it. Now I don't post on there now because I'm like done. But
yeah.
and I actually read a story the other day that kids, when asked, they said if nobody was on social media, if they didn't have to be on social media, but they also knew that their peers were not on social media, they wouldn't be. And I think that's important for
Yes.
us that
Yeah.
we are modeling the right behaviors for our kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I, for the parents out there, I think, like, I remember, like, my kids are older than yours. And I remember Facebook was really just kind of coming about. And we were just so reserved about letting Hannah, who I think was 13 or 14 at the time, it's like just even getting an account because it just seemed like, and now, kids on Instagram, and like parents, I feel it's, maybe I'm just sound like an old grandma, which I'm not a grandma, but that creating boundaries in terms of like when kids should be on social media, because I really feel it shapes their experience as
Oh,
an adult.
absolutely. My poor son, he's cursed because I have
Yeah,
been on all the platforms, so I really know what's on there,
yeah,
and he's not allowed on Snapchat, he's not allowed on TikTok, not allowed on Instagram. He would never wanna be on Facebook, but yeah, he's nothing,
yeah,
except I let him do YouTube Shorts, so there's that, but there's not a lot of him talking to people on there. They don't have a way to direct message people, that
yeah,
kind of thing, and it's because people think that TikTok is just all fun and games and silly trends. There is some shady stuff on there and scary stuff that gets sent to you, and you're like, "Why in the world did they just send me this?"
yeah,
So, going back to behaving, like I have a huge account on TikTok. I haven't posted in almost a year because I just don't even want my son to think I'm okay with it.
yeah.
I just am not.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is I'm not sure that people actually realize how the algorithm works in terms of shaping your experience on each platform. Because we need to consider that the platform is based on, let's keep people on the platform. So if you like a cat video, you're going to get served up cat videos. If you like a, I don't know, I'm not very politically astute, but if you're watching videos, or you like things that have a political turn to them, you're going to get served that up, but you're only going to get served up one side of the story. So if you're not getting a balanced view, I mean, that's why there was like so much misinformation, like even during COVID, because
Mhm.
there was so much, like, I don't want to say misinformation, disinformation, but just an unbalanced
Well, and
proportion.
what I mean, getting into that, what's scary is that's where young people get their news, is social
Yes.
media. So it's really shaping the way that they see the world, like you said.
Yeah, because they just keep getting served up what um, they already agree with. So they're not given that, that other viewpoint, which is a little bit scary, and it creates more polarization. And like I feel like we're living in such a polarized world as it is, and then we just don't get any balance in terms of that. What advice would you have for women to help them maintain, their physical health, their mental health, because, like I said, we said social media, it's a double-edged sword.
I find that when I'm intentional with my day from the get-go, I have much more control over my behaviors and I have much more discipline. So if I know what I'm doing that day, if I'm going to get online, what's the point of me getting online? What are my goals? Again, this is what I do for a living, but what are my goals for the day? And then shutting it down. And I think that's true with everything, just like
Yeah,
how you talk about having an eating plan and knowing what your workout's going to be. When you know that, then you're not a free for all. You're not having a free
yeah,
for all day where whatever happens, happens. And
yeah,
I think that's important for every department of our life.
yeah. I would agree that bringing intention. So many clients, and you've maybe experienced this or heard this, that oh, I was up late because I just got lost. It's a black hole of time. You just
Hmm.
get lost down a rabbit hole, like of TikTok or Instagram, and it's just so easy to keep scrolling because the algorithm is going to keep bringing up things that are of somewhat like a bit interesting. So it's like, oh, you feel like you're missing out on something. So
And it's so easy. Just this last break I took, I found myself going on Instagram, not even realizing it. And it was to escape like anxious thoughts. So
yeah,
it's like it's replacing all the other things that would be better for me. And I'm
yeah.
using that as a distraction instead of dealing with what I'm going through, kind of thing. And yeah, that's not healing.
But it's so easy to do.
Yeah.
And, like so many people will say, well, I don't have time to exercise or I don't have time to food prep. But I want to ask them, how much time do you spend on social media? Because it's the 5 minutes here, the 10 minutes there, the half an hour here that just gets leaked throughout the day. So I really love your tip of saying, hey, be intentional, get on with a purpose to say, hey, I haven't heard from so and so, I'm just going to check up with them, I'm just going to send them a message, or I have a fun picture I want to post because I want my relatives in XYZ to see that, or I'm looking for a recipe, like having a purpose rather than just being mindless about it.
And I think a lot of people get online to prove a point. Like they see, I'm not the person that keeps up with my I know that there's family members on Facebook, but I don't ever do it. I just don't enjoy Facebook at all.
Yeah.
And sometimes I see people I know post and I'm like, really? Like that really sounded so fake. And I don't know. I just feel like they are trying to prove something. And I can't imagine spending my life because I create a lot of content, but I don't want to create content where I'm constantly throwing my family up there and bragging like we have like this amazing life. I mean, we don't have a bad life, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's just not, it's gross to me. That's gross.
Well, I think it just becomes a little bit more of a like a contest. Like maybe in the past you were competing with your neighbor to have the greenest lawn or the nicest garden, or so that has just taken on a worldwide significance that like I'm not competing with the people on my block. Like, oh, so and so posted their Christmas decorations. Well, I'm going to beat that. And so the purpose of it has changed a bit. And so maybe it's a bit ego driven in some cases.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. It is.
Yeah.
It's all about the ego and wanting to, and that's sad because it's empty. You're not going to fulfill that void that you have by doing that. You're going to continue to, oh, I have to have more. I have to show more. I mean,
Yeah.
my sister, she's she's a big fan of like YouTubers and she's told
Yeah.
me stories of even YouTubers she's met. She lives in Alabama that but they had really big channels and they had to quit because they got in so much debt because they
Uh-huh.
bought so much stuff for their videos because they felt that they always had to one up their competition and it sounded miserable.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like anything that just gets out of hand in terms of, like um showing off, or but that's why I feel like it's pretty alienating and lonely, empty. Do you think that there's a different experience for women and men in social media?
Oh yes. I
How
I
how
think that
so?
we both compare, but women are so driven by emotions and feelings. We're much more likely to fall into that comparison trap, to feel less than. And I can't speak for men, but my husband has never been on social media. He has never had an account. He has no
Yeah,
desire. He doesn't
yeah,
see my videos, like nothing. And I'm jealous. And when
yeah,
I tell him some of this stuff that happens online, he thinks it's ridiculous because it is. It really is. We forget that so many people are not even in that world. They have no idea what we're talking about.
yeah,
And their lives are so much simpler because of it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of laugh because my son isn't on social media. My
That's
daughter
good.
is to a certain extent, but eh, intermittently on and off. And she could be building her business through it, but she just does not. She does not enjoy it. So it's like the person the person in the family is like, "Mom, get off your phone." Like I'm the one that is
Yeah.
so
Well,
and
we live in a pretty small town, and my husband has a few businesses, and he's never had to market. He's never needed social media. It's
yeah,
all word of mouth.
yeah,
And he has too much business coming in. 'Cause it's just,
I have
he
no
has a hard time
problem.
saying no. And sometimes I wish, I mean, would I rather have that? Because what I chose, and it's exactly what I wanted. I wanted a life where I didn't have to, because I already had that life where I had to run all over the place and work crazy hours and come home just completely exhausted. And I didn't want that. I wanted my life simple. I wanted to be able to stay home all day if I wanted to. And I got that life and I do like it. But every single situation, every lifestyle we have to have boundaries. I mean, I have
Yeah.
to remind myself to like get out of the house and go see a friend.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been seeing, I have this small group of clients that I see twice a week in person. And I can't tell you how much fun that is because I love my clients online. And if I could see them in, in real life, I would love that. But I also had that with a brick and mortar similar to your experience as a newscaster, like your life is not your own. You have to be there at a certain time. And like we are offered a lot of freedom with being able to work from home and work the hours that we want. But everything comes with a cost and a compromise, so
Yes.
you have to find the balance of it. And so and I also maybe not getting out as much. You're not like, the more I'm out and about, the more creative I can be.
Oh,
But
yeah.
like I don't always have I don't always have I'm not always in Mexico or on a holiday or out with friends or whatever. And so there's a certain amount of time you just have to be behind your computer, and so the creativity is a little bit less. So and I get tired. I do get tired of the kind of the selling, and always trying to find a kind of coming up with something new and original. I really try and think of like, okay, well, if I'm creating something, if I can help one person, well, that's what I'm here for, helping one, right?
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think I would agree that women women are naturally so hard on themselves.
Yes. Oh yeah, there's the guy, the male ego. I mean, I've done some actual trainings with some men, and they think a lot of themselves, and they have big accounts, and so I mean, they're showing up to prove something too, and they're doing
Yeah,
well. I'm not talking about
yeah,
everybody, but yeah. So I've seen them. I mean, we all have different personalities, and there's going to be men who are similar to some of us women with our personalities, and some of us are extremely driven, goal oriented people, and so we take those goals to social media, whether that's something that you use for your business or for work or not. We look at it as a contest.
yeah,
And but I will say, as someone who is like that, I have changed so much over the last 4 years because it was a rat race. I
yeah,
was running and running and running, trying to build this following and rack up the views, and I did it, and I felt empty. Like, okay, I did it now, and I kept up in the ante, and then I realized I don't need all these people to make
right.
the money I need to have the lifestyle I want. Like, why am I doing this? And
Yeah,
that's when you saw me start taking sometimes really long breaks because I'm
yes,
like, I'm still making money behind the scenes. I don't need to prove to people that I'm,
yeah,
able to
yeah.
do this 24/7 every day of the year. There's no reason.
Well, and also, how many friends do you have? How many followers do you have? That doesn't make you a more lovable or more like put money in your bank account necessarily. It is kind of an empty following because really, if you had a half a dozen followers that were really committed to you, whether that's in terms of friends or clients,
Yeah.
that's all you need. But it's just kind of like the bling of everything that we assign value to. Oh, well, they only have 600 followers. Well, maybe they don't know
Right.
what they're talking about. But that
And,
is,
and and I know from having a very small account to a very large account and like losing a ton of followers at once and then gaining a ton of followers at once, then they weren't even the right followers. none of it felt that good. I mean, yes, when I went viral, the first few times I went viral, like it felt good in the moment.
Yeah.
Then you have this drastic drop and like low because the algorithm stops pushing that content. The followers drop off. And then all of a sudden they start to unfollow you because maybe they followed you for that one video. And
Yeah.
that's a horrible feeling. But when you take all the feelings away from it and you don't get too high or too low, like you just stay the course in the middle, then
Yeah.
your expectations are right where they're supposed to be and you're not going to be
Yeah.
disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like when, somebody loses a pound, they're like, "Oh, it's the best day ever." The next day, the pound is back. "Oh, it's the worst day. It's this
Right.
roller coaster." And it's like, "No, we're just taking the average." And the same, with like, especially if you're using social media to build a business, you're taking the average, like what's happening overall. You're going to lose, you're going to gain, but we just have to stay steady with it because otherwise it is a very fast lane to burnout.
Oh yeah.
So, for anybody that has experienced burnout, and you've been very transparent about it, like I know in the beginning you're like, "Oh, I have to explain where I went, why I came back, what's going on," um, and you've had a couple, off and ons. So, what would you, if you find that if someone finds that they're burning out and they've had enough social media, what would be your recommendations for taking a break and then kind of easing back into it?
Well, I think it depends on why you need to take this break. For me, the first time I took a month-long break was the first big break. It was because my business really needed me to pay attention to it, and I said, "I'm taking the month of May off. I'm redoing my entire course." Then there was other times where my dad was really sick, and emotionally, it was really hard for me to get online and act like everything was okay when it
Yeah,
wasn't. And so I had to find a way to, again, I'm an all or nothing person. So I would go cold, dark, you're not going to see me at all. But now I find, okay, we're just not going to post on the weekends anymore.
yeah,
Or maybe we post 3 times a week and instead of, I used to post 7 days a week
yeah,
instead of 7 days a week. And I have to be okay with that. And I am now. I mean, after doing it enough and doing because it's really hard to get back. Like when you take a 2 month break,
I
it is
know.
really hard to come back.
Yeah,
So for that person, when that happens, what you need to do is tell yourself you do not have to go immediately back to how much you were posting before your break. So if all you do are 2 stories that week, 2 days you're in stories, great. Or if all you do is maybe you used to post 5 times a week. I remember when I just got back from this break, if I posted 1 reel that week, we were celebrating. And then the next week, I'll do 2. And then the next week, maybe 3. And then
yeah,
I don't have to go beyond that if I don't want to, because that's what I told myself. So
yeah,
I think you just really have to give yourself grace and don't do the all or nothing mentality. Like
yeah,
it's okay not to go from 5, 7 days a week and take a break and then come back and only post once. It's okay. You're gonna
yeah.
like it more.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the all or something, whether it's social media or exercise or with nutrition, anything, rather than the hot and cold, all or nothing. And you and I are coming to social media with a different purpose than many people that don't use it for a business. But I would say that if someone is taking an entire break from social media, if they're not using it for their business, I would just make sure that they are reaching out to people in real life so
Oh,
that
yeah.
their friends and family are like, they seem to have fallen off the planet. I used to see them all the time on platforms and they've disappeared. So my advice to them would be to, make sure that you're communicating with your friends and family. And I think that in general, rather than just using social media for communication, like pick up the phone. Like
Yeah.
as a former teacher, I find that, you know, younger people are less skilled at communication, like in person,
I
because
believe
it's
that.
texting, it's social media. So, there is a fine art to communication and like having a conversation. And so we should do it. We should do it more often, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't talk to any of my, in fact, I've missed out on family functions because I don't rely on social media to communicate with family. So yeah, I think that's important that you are actually having real life conversations with, especially your family, but
Yeah.
your friends as well. Don't assume people are seeing these posts
Yeah.
and keeping up with you that way. That's
I had a person that was just like so angry with me, and I just didn't understand why. And it was because I had missed their birthday. And I'm like, look, I know my own birthday, my children's birthdays. Like, how would I know it's your birthday? Well, it was on social media. It's like, I am not a consumer. I am
that's
a content
crazy.
creator. Like, I can't be held accountable to knowing
Right.
birthday based on social media. It was just, I was like, oh, that was very eye opening to me.
Well,
So,
and it goes the other way too. I remember when I first started my first business on social media, and I would get so offended that my friends and family didn't comment on my post about my business or ask me about my business in person. Like it was so hurtful to me. And now I would be shocked if they did post on my
yeah,
post because it's totally different worlds. Like they don't need what I offer. So
yeah,
why would they comment or even follow? My sister didn't even know I had an Instagram account. Like they don't care, but
right,
that's okay. It
yeah,
took me a while to realize, oh, that's because they have no use for it. They don't, I am not there to help them with that. I'm there to be their sister or their friend. And so I
yeah.
think it goes both ways. You can't assume that just because you're putting your personal stuff out there that everybody
And
sees
get
it
posted.
and then take it personally when they didn't see it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not easy to see everything that people post of the people that you follow.
yeah, because there is just a lot going on there. So having it's funny because if someone picks up the phone and calls you out of the blue, it's kind of shocking because first of all, it might be social media or a text, and then a text, can I call, rather, sometimes people just call and it's like, wow, that is really refreshing. Maybe it's not a bad thing to, and let alone dropping by your house unannounced. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, don't do that.
yeah, but that's where we are in today's world. Whereas
Yeah,
in the past, I kind of like that people don't drop by unannounced. But do you know what I mean? It's just so different. So
yes.
there is a double-edged sword with social media, and I really like your message of being intentional, not taking things personally, and trying to keep it in perspective. But if you had a wish for our listeners regarding social media, what would that be?
I want everyone to know how valuable they are, no matter what their following is, or even if they don't post content. It's not about that. Everyone has special gifts and purposes, and sometimes they aren't meant to give those gifts online. Sometimes their purpose is not wrapped up in being online. And sometimes it's a big sign that if you're not enjoying your time online, that you need to go do something else and spend some time with some other people. And so I just think that again, we get wrapped up in the follows and the likes and the views. And that is not real life. When you die, nobody's going to go to your funeral and talk about how many followers you had. So I just, it's about legacy, it's about purpose, and it's about the people in your life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more in keeping it all in perspective. And as a reminder that what you're seeing is the highlight reel, and it's fine to be posting a highlight reel. Like everybody's celebrating at some point in their life. But if you're in a position that you're always seeing everyone's celebration and discounting your own life because of what you're seeing online, knowing that that is probably not really reality. So I couldn't agree more, and I really appreciate the perspective that you've brought, because seeing how this has developed over time, your perspective is very valuable. So thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate you having me here.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Allie, on Instagram at Allie Kerr Fitness.
And you'll find me, Shauna, on Instagram at Shauna Kaminsky. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback. If you're enjoying the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, please subscribe and share it with other health-minded women. Ratings and reviews are also much appreciated and help us get our message out to a larger audience.
Until next time, be healthy and be happy.